Hi, friends. Today we'll hear from Julie Smith and Janine Lazur. Both are community members with multiple button users and both host mentorship calls to help other folks on their journey. Join us as we talk about some amazing moments and some hot takes. Hello, Julie. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm incredibly excited to speak to you about your personal journey with buttons and your own companion animals, and also your professional work, which has taken on buttons as a large piece of that. And I am sure that our audience is super excited to hear all about that. So thank you for joining me.
Of course, I was so excited to get the invitation.
Yeah, I have known about you and have been speaking with you for several years now, but I don't know who in this space knows who you are. So would you take a brief moment to introduce yourself, introduce your learners, and tell us a little bit about how you got started with buttons?
Sure. So my name's Julie Smith, and I got started with buttons about 2.5 years ago. I had 3 senior cats at the time, Loki, Trouble, and Squirt. And Loki was going through some anxiety, some medical challenges. And I had met with a couple of cat behaviorists. I've been in the zoo field for over 20 years. So we had lots of training and enrichment going on in our household already. And I just wasn't sure how else to help her and kind of feeling a little bit lost. And I had started seeing some videos of Bunny, and Copper, I think was another early one that I saw, and then Ducat. And looking at those, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to teach her English. Maybe I'm just going to teach her to talk. Let's see where this goes. And I ended up joining one of the first Let's Get Them pressing courses, and kind of the rest is history. So Loki had 74 buttons before she passed away, unfortunately, in August of 2024. But that was such a huge part of our life and such a good way for me to help be able to care for her in her senior years. It would not have been the same without buttons. And then, of course, her sister Trouble learned and Squirt new words and like would press occasionally, but wasn't a big presser. So that's where I started. And now I still have Trouble, who's 17. And yeah, she turned 17 in November 2025, and she's doing so well. She has 83 buttons right now. And I have 2 new little blessings from the cat distribution system, Walk-In and Nova. They'll be 5 months old later this week. And I think Nova had her first intentional press. I'm a little skeptical, but they're definitely understanding word recognition, and they're paying attention a lot when Trouble presses. So they're on their way as well.
That is so cool. Do you think because of your work in zoos and because of your knowledge of behavior that it was simpler for you to understand how to proceed through the button journey? Or was it still sort of like, I don't know what to do here, language, cats, what was your process like in that regard?
I think eventually it was easier for me in the beginning. I kind of wasn't sure where to start. I had a, brief idea, and I got started with a couple things, and then I ended up joining the Let's Get Them pressing course. And that's when it really clicked for me. And I was like, oh, this is just like training any other behavior. I just have to teach them how this works. Okay, now we're good. Now we're good to go. So I think having a little extra guidance of what makes a good first word or first words was really helpful. And kind of the progression through the process. And once we got that, I was adding 3 buttons a week for Loki because she would just stop using them altogether because it wasn't interesting anymore. So I had to really keep
Yeah,
her. Yeah.
that's amazing. That's a really, really good point that I would love to circle back to, because we get this a lot. Like we have like 15 buttons and all of a sudden my learner's not using them anymore. Why? And you bring up such a valuable point that sometimes it's because there aren't enough words,
Mhm.
right? Like they already know how to say these things, and there's so much more that our learners may want to communicate and don't have the ability to.
Yeah.
So let's circle back to that right now. I'd like to ask you, what words did you start with, and what did those early days look like for you? What was like the first breakthrough that you had?
So I started before the class, I had um, pets, catnip, and bedtime. And bedtime was for Trouble because she loved to just go sit in bed. And I was happy to do that a few times a day because what usually wasn't long lasting. And I was adamant that I was not going to put any food words down because I had 3 senior cats. They were overweight. Loki had some GI issues. I just saw nothing but problems.
Yeah.
But treat was our breakthrough button. So after taking the class, I adjusted a little bit, added treat on there. And that was the thing that got everybody's attention for sure. And now I have a ton of food buttons. So I highly recommend that even if you're concerned about it, because I had a lot of reasons to be concerned, and it's been nothing but helpful for us.
That's awesome. I think that's another really great point. When I started, I too was very adamant about not having any food related buttons because I didn't want every button push to be associated with receiving a snack. And at that point, I didn't know anything about behavior. I didn't know anything about training, but I did know that I wanted the words to mean the concepts and not for every button push to result in or to take on the meaning of a snack. But, as we have learned as a community, what makes this process simplest and fastest, we have learned that snack is such a great, or treat or kibble or whatever, is such a great word to start with because it's so easy to reinforce multiple times, like right at the board, and it's highly motivating to most learners. So it makes sense that that was sort of a game changer for you. And I'm glad that you weren't sort of stuck in the, like how we had been talking about it before, because for like years, we were like, don't use any food buttons, don't use any food buttons. And it is sort of like a gateway. It's like a gateway button because it really quickly can help our learners understand that I can control outcomes just by this simple behavior.
Yeah, for sure. And especially being very food motivated, it got their attention real quick.
Yeah. So after those, after you got the snack button and you got some momentum rolling there, then what sort of words did you start adding? How did you start thinking differently about what your learners might want to say?
So at the time, I was still really focused on Loki and, of course, trying to teach the others at the same time. But Loki was the one struggling. So we worked on, and being seniors, they weren't really into play a whole lot. We did training was an early button for us because she loved training and she went to
Aw.
physical therapy. She had 2 CCL tears. So she went in for acupuncture, laser. She did the water treadmill, and we did a bunch of exercises at home. So we kind of went the training medical route. And we had outside because they're all harness trained, and she loved to go on walks as well. So kind of just looking at what was interesting to her and what I thought would help us in our cooperative care journey as well. We ended up adding body parts. We ended up adding names, but that was never a super popular one. Weather was very interesting to Loki. She loved to talk about the weather, which was funny.
That's so cool. Was she sort of predictive of the weather or sort of narrating what was going on with the weather as it happened? Or what did that look like?
So she mostly would narrate, and I think we had a cat door out to a screened-in porch, so she had free access. And on the chillier mornings here in North Florida, she would go out and go out and come in and cold. And then like kind of commenting on the difference between like the temperature outside versus the temperature inside. And then she loved sunny was one of her favorite buttons towards the end because she loved to just go outside and take a nap in the sun. Like she would do it for hours. And she always had only supervised time outside. So I was always out there with her. But that was one of her favorites too. So kind of a request for a nap in the sun and then just narrating also.
I mean, I think, yeah, I think if I had a sunny button, that would be my favorite too. Like a sun puddle naps, that's pretty epic. I love that. And then as the number of words, concepts, buttons that your learners have and had grew, what became some of their standout favorite things to talk about aside from sunny and weather? Yeah.
So Loki actually did use her body parts and medical words quite a bit. She would ask for exercises, which were her physical therapy exercises, especially if I had been saying no to food for a while, because she knew that was always a yes, no matter what. So that was her workaround, and I always let her work around it because then at least she's moving. So exercises, she also would press like belly medicine was another common one because we had some anti-nausea pills that she could have. And then trouble and delicious. She went kind of crazy. Maybe like, I think it was November like 2024. She was hitting delicious so many times. And it was so funny because it wasn't connected to anything in particular. It's just a descriptor. And I would often say after they had a meal or ate anything like, oh, was that delicious? And so I think part of it was her narrating about what just happened, but then also she just kind of liked the sound of the word, it seemed. There was 2 days where she pressed it 203 times. And I'm just laughing hysterically, but also a little bit annoyed. But that was
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to think what that, what sort of like deeper meaning that could have for her. Like, the way in which you use it is after like a food event, which is highly reinforcing to her. So it's sort of like this connective word, or, um, you know, like she uses it after an event that makes her internally feel really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
she
really
did it end
interesting.
up yeah, she ended up expanding it to pets or scritches or something that's almost like a please or a thank you or a just confirmation that I liked that kind
Oh,
of.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's really sweet. So I'd like you to more talk. I'd like to talk more about the cooperative care aspect, because that is such a powerful component for, I think, a lot of people in our community, and one that I think doesn't. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but I think in the broader uh, context of button using animals, people sort of think of this. Oh, my dog can like tell me when they want to go out, or when they want to eat, but I can tell all of that with body language already. So what's the purpose of buttons? And I think this is a really powerful use case for buttons, is enabling our learners to advocate for their own health and well-being, for them to be able to tell us when and where they're in pain. So can you talk a little bit more about how you modeled those concepts, how they came to be used across your learners, and the sort of applications you see for that going forward that could be really powerful within this community?
Yeah, so it started with body parts and just using like pets or scritches as we were doing that, like ear scritches, chin scritches, side, back, like anything, really just naming everything and kind of making that part of our training, or just when they're calm and relaxed, like petting and naming the body parts. And then thinking about what was going to be useful for us for each cat's individual care. So for Loki, she got hip massages, and she got acupuncture and she did her exercises. So those kinds of things. And then also frequent ear infections. And so, especially like when you have all those negative experiences with vets looking in your ears and mom needing to clean your ears, and none of that's happy. I found just by even speaking the words, she was more likely to just cooperate and just sit there. And then the best thing was Trouble, who I used to have to chase down to clean her ears or give her any kind of medication. She would see Loki do it, and then I would have to pretend to give her ear medicine also.
Oh,
And she is still to this day is so much better. Like just having that common communication and being able to explain this is what's about to happen, and then you'll
yeah.
get a treat or just a little ouch, but it's going to help your big ouch kind of thing has been really great. And so using that, they got monthly Adapon injections. So using the language and the buttons to explain that, flea and tick medications, the ear cleanings, physical therapy, and even vet exams too. We have a little travel board. We had it for both of them, but Trouble still uses it. And it has a few body parts in there. It's pretty small, but it has medicine, it has friend on there. And when she goes to physical therapy, because she's doing it now too, the doctors and the techs will use that. And even though she doesn't use it, just having that there in that extra layer of communication seems to really help her just be calm.
That's
So it's
so
been
cool.
great. And I've started with the kittens now from day one, using that button speak, that limited language with them. And I'm already seeing the benefits of that.
That's so cool. I've noticed something similar about the predictability that words can offer, right? Even without the buttons, I think a learner who is consistently hearing words that are predictive of experiences, um, and able to build those associations, can have a greater sense of control around those environments, right? Like we talk about going on a walk and just sort of labeling triggers, right? That's friend, or that's stranger dog, or that's bird. And being able to hear that and know that you are sort of in sync with this other being, and that you're not like carrying this load all by yourself, and that things aren't necessarily going to jump out and surprise you, that there's a little bit more control and predictability in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's so beautiful with the cats, because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with too, right? Is cooperative care with cats can feel like a sort of insurmountable task. They've got sharp claws and bitey, and cats can't be trained, and they're too independent, and people have all of these. Oh, I saw a
Don't get,
thought there.
don't get me started on cats can't be trained.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, clearly they
Yeah.
can. I mean, learning is occurring all the time, whether or not we think we're training something or not. Just by saying specific words in specific contexts again and again, those associations will be built regardless. So that is so beautiful, so powerful. Um, and what an amazing way to give our learners just a little bit more clarity and calm around otherwise stressful situations.
Yeah, and something you mentioned about like stressful situations too, trouble, always afraid of fireworks, used to hide behind the washer and dryer
Mhm.
for 8 hours on the 4th of July, despite calming medications. And I think there's something to that shared experience of like, oh, I heard the noise too. Big noise outside, big noise all done soon. And now, like, sometimes she'll walk over there and be like, I can get in here if I need to, but she's not hiding anymore. Like, she's just the fact of that I'm naming it in the moment seems to calm her down quite a bit.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you bring up an important point, I think, about the sort of co-regulatory aspect of it, where you're seeing and experiencing this loud sound and you're okay, right? You can breathe through it. You're not freaking out. So potentially there's less need for her to freak out. She can
Yeah.
sort of um, vibe off of you and get the sense from you that if in this environment you can remain calm, perhaps she can too. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
It speaks to connection and communication, which is what this is all about. So I love that. Yeah. Talk to me about bringing the buttons into the vet office and what that was like to begin with, and what that sort of evolved into.
So the first time, because I was a little skeptical before I got into this, and so knowing other people are skeptical too, like I wasn't sure how they were going to react to it. But the first time I even talked about it, Loki had been pressing her ear button over and over and over again, like didn't want scritches, which she usually liked. And so she was going the next day anyway. So I'm telling the tech as they're taking our history, she's been pressing her ear button a lot. She didn't want scritches. Can you guys please just take a look at her ears just in case? And he was like, all right, crazy lady. And they did it. And they were, wonderful as they always are, did the ear swabs and everything. And she had an ear infection.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Right. So they were doing the ear swabs.
Yeah, they were doing the ear swabs, and it turned out she had an ear infection, and she wasn't scratching her ears or doing any shaking. And she always did like the little airplane ears when they were uncomfortable too, and none of that had started yet. So that was kind of the moment where they were like, "Oh, this could be really useful." And I have no idea what they thought about it before, but after that, I started making the travel board and doing that, and everyone's been really receptive and really excited to use it. I get a lot of questions when I'm waiting in the lobby for trouble because it goes on top of her little crate. And I've had some really good conversations with all kinds of pet owners and the employees there too. So everyone's been really excited about it.
That's so cool. And are the buttons that you take, the words that you take into the clinics with you, specifically around like husbandry and cooperative care, so like body parts and ouch and medicine and that sort of thing, and then friend and help, or what? Yeah, what?
Yeah.
Maybe just
So
run down what buttons you bring with you.
we have friend, help, medicine, treat, scritches. Oh, and there's one more. I don't have all the individual body parts on there just because that would be, I have a second one I was going to make. I need to figure out a way to make it easier to transport because I've always gotten in trouble. She goes in a stroller and her litter box and then the buttons and all of her paraphernalia. So we just do the body parts, but I'll often take a list of words that he understands too or email that ahead of time so they can, even though there's not a button, they can still use that language. And that's been really great.
That's so cool. Can you see the recognition in Trouble's body language? You can see that she's receptive to hearing the words that she's familiar with, and that
Yeah.
it calms her or creates a sense of predictability, something like that.
Yeah, she physically relaxes. Like you can see like the tenseness. Like there's still a little bit there because she's at the vet, but
Yeah.
she's allowed the vet to do like just a physical exam, listen to her heart, feel her belly, like do the ear temperature and all of that just by, touch ear, just with all of those words or touching
That's
the button first.
truly incredible. It's
Yes.
truly incredible, right? I mean, you just think of how anxiety inducing a vet visit or a doctor visit. I mean, even for a child, right? A doctor visit can be, you just have no idea what to expect. So being able to create that sense of predictability. I mean, even if you understand that something uncomfortable is coming, you're going to be more, um, it has the potential to take down that level of anxiety because you're not just like, anything could happen now. And I know it's going to be bad, but now I know exactly what kind of bad is coming potentially. And I can sort of temper it's great. It's powerful.
Yeah, and now I'm so proud of her. She goes once a month for Solensia injections for her arthritis, and they take us into a room. So it's just a tech appointment. And we sit on the floor. She lets the tech get all of her vitals. And then without any restraint, she gets her injection. And then we go on our way. And it like training, we have done specific training for that, but without that added layer, I'm not sure that it would go that well for a 17-year-old who's had a history of not so fun vet visits in her past.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. So you mentioned before that you were a little bit skeptical before you started this process, which is, I think, the right way to be. It's natural. It's good to approach it with a scientific mind and a curious mind. So tell me a little bit about where that skepticism came from and why you decided to explore this despite that and where you are now with it.
So I think I'm a skeptical person by nature anyway. Like I want to see the evidence for sure. And then just in this day and age too, I think on the internet, sometimes it can be hard to tell what's staged and what's not. And I just didn't know anything about it. So I'm seeing these random videos on TikTok mostly, and some Instagram ones. And some of them are pretty easy, like somebody asking for food or something like that. And like one of the moments that sticks out in my mind, it was Copper. She asked for a carrot outside. And then she was given a carrot outside and you could tell like exactly what she wanted. And it sounds so simple, but I was like, she wanted a carrot outside and that's what she got. And so like, yeah, just over time, like seeing it, and especially the way like the videos they're edited for the length of time and for the format, but like you can tell there's no funny business going on. And just seeing more repetitions of that, I was like, I can't explain this away. Like this has to be real. And I think the combination of that, I don't think I would have been pushed to try it without Loki's health issues. But like having a need where I think this could really fill a gap in our husbandry at home, plus just exposure to it over time and being like, this might actually be a thing. Like, let's give it a try and see what happens. Kind of a perfect moment.
I love it. And I think, yeah, I mean, I was skeptical when I started too. But I also didn't have the behavioral background to be like, oh, this isn't possible. I was like, let's just see what happens, which was kind of fun to play with and explore. And so I had sort of these ups and downs of skepticism along my journey. And then I think one of the things that was really helpful to me, as it sounds like was helpful to you, was seeing so many videos from so many different people. Like one dog pressing carrot outside, right? Oh, cool trick, right? But, 50 dogs and 25 cats pressing combinations of words in context that make too much sense to be ignored. I mean, that says something, right? It's anecdotal evidence, but anecdotal evidence is still evidence and worth exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, was there something else you were going to say about that?
No, I don't know if you're the same. No, I think for me too, like seeing so many different people, like you said, or so many different dogs and cats, it can't be a trick that many times. And then seeing, especially when they're narrating something. So like there's something that happens and then they comment on the consequence of that. Like at some point you have to at least look into it.
Yeah. Or, when there aren't even humans present,
Right.
which happens less frequently, but those are really compelling moments for me too. Like when, we got the Connect system and somebody's out of the house and the learner, I think it was Parker, ouch, sick or something, ouch, sick, help. And then like puked when nobody was home, like, come on.
Yeah.
Or like where mom when somebody's gone, like, come on, heartbreaking, but also like really hard to deny that something interesting is going on, especially because the behavior of pressing buttons is such a high response effort behavior, it takes a lot of effort, like cognitive effort to walk to a board where there are a bunch of words, not in your native style of communication, find the right one, communicate the thing,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Especially when it's just narrating, like they're not getting anything directly out of it other than the conversation with their human. Is
right. It is really interesting, and it speaks to how reinforcing it is to be heard,
Yeah.
um, which is really beautiful. I'm always like, I just want to be heard and seen. And, like as whatever cheesy as that sounds, I think the same is very true for our animal companions. Everyone just wants to be like acknowledged. They want to be in dialogue with the systems around them.
Yeah.
And I think that feels really powerful to me. And it seems to have a powerful effect on our companion animals as well.
Yeah, for sure. It makes them feel more part of the family than just an outside observer kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And if we're talking again about, companion animals are captive animals, right? We talk about giving them as much choice, agency, and control as possible. And I think this is um, a pretty direct line into that. Like, I think the first step is just listening, in new ways. And I think that's what these systems, this button technology sort of facilitates is a different type of listening,
Yeah.
because in order to create a mat of words on the floor or on the wall or whatever that our learners are interested in using, we have to be really actively engaged with hearing what is interesting to them, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah. What do you want to talk about? Yeah.
right. I always say this. I'm going to make this joke, even though I've made it 1,000 times. But I always say if someone were to make a button board for me and they put the word like bro on it, I just wouldn't use. I wouldn't use that button, right? So
Yeah.
the words really have to be the product of deeply trying to understand the individual.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you had 3 learners actively using buttons, were they all using the same board or did you have 3 different boards for them?
So I started with one, and Loki and Trouble, being siblings, did fine, but Trouble didn't really start to advance until I got her own sub. And so I wasn't sure in the beginning if she just wasn't as interested. I think she also, being very different personalities too. Loki was very attached, very clingy, very vocal already before we had buttons. But they never really fought over it. But then at some point I decided I'm going to start Trouble from scratch in another room with the same layout. And that's when she really started to kind of take off and take a little bit more interest. And so it was interesting watching them because cats are so subtle in their body language anyway. Like they would never fight, but really displace each other over the other buttons. But Loki never used Trouble's board ever. So now we have 2
Really?
distinct boards. Yeah, it was interesting to watch. And then Loki passed away just like a month or so after that. So we didn't get a whole lot of time with those. But once Loki passed away, there was a little bit of a quiet period and then Trouble went crazy. She just, I was adding words for her all the time. I added a full hex tile at one point because it was the same configuration of the other one. So it was clear that she knew all along what everything meant. She just hadn't been motivated totally to use it or not comfortable if Loki was there. And I just wasn't picking up on that. And also now our activities director wasn't around anymore. And so she kind of took charge now. But now she's up to, I think her average is like 85 presses a day. It's down a little bit since the kittens, because sometimes they're too much in our space.
Yeah.
But there are days when she's super, super active. Obviously, when we're home all day on a weekend is more than a weekday. But she is pretty active and pretty communicative now.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. And then Squirt had her own out on the porch. Squirt, I always describe Squirt as Piglet from Winnie the Pooh because she's just a very small animal and afraid of a lot of things. And I think her level of anxiety just didn't allow her to use them much in the house. And she would come in and she definitely understood the words and she would respond like if Trouble pressed find it, which is the camera throwing kibble on the ground. Squirt's right there, even if she was fast asleep the moment before. And I saw the same results with her with cooperative care too, being able to explain things with the language, but she just never really picked up the button pressing thing. She could do it during the training session, but it never translated out of that.
Interesting. Do you have a sense of why some learners might be so much interested, or what's the right way to say this? Some learners clearly have a massive receptive vocabulary, right? And then there's almost no expressive vocabulary. Do you have a sense of why, of what condition the cross learners cause? I'm not saying this right. What is the
No,
right
I
way to
think I
say
know what
this?
you're saying. Like why would Loki press so much more than Trouble? essentially.
Yeah. What do you think creates the receptive versus expressive proclivities across learners?
I think it's their environment, right? Like animals are all constantly operating on the environment they're in, and that's affected by so many different things and perceived by individuals so differently. Animals clearly have personalities. So Loki, separation anxiety, always my little shadow. Every animal is exactly as smart as they need to be. Loki was very smart, but everyone's as smart as they need to be. Um, and Trouble was too, but I think like just like humans, we have introverts and extroverts, and we learn in different ways, and we learn better with certain ways than others. And I think that's true for animals as well. But I think like the need to communicate. So I have something that matters to me that meets my needs that I'm not getting, plus feeling comfortable in your environment, plus a supportive environment. I think is like kind of the formula if I had to guess at what that is. So once Loki was no longer there, Trouble had much more of a need than she did before. And Loki never directly pressed things for her necessarily, but she got anything Loki asked for. So I also wasn't pushing, no Trouble, you have to push the treat button too. Like that just didn't happen. Whoever was around got a treat.
Yeah.
So once there was a need, she certainly demonstrated that she's more than capable and had been all along, just didn't feel like it, which is
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's so interesting to think about that. I love it. So I would love to speak with you a bit about how this journey with your companion animals has impacted your work, because you are involved in something very exciting at the Santa Fe Teaching Zoo. So if you could please tell us a little bit about the work you do and how you got started doing that.
So I'm in the zoo field. I've been in the zoo field for a little over 20 years. Started off at the Minnesota Zoo as an intern working with birds, and I bounced between Zoo Miami, Minnesota Zoo, and now I'm at the Santa Fe College Teaching Zoo, where we're training the next generation of zookeepers. So I run our animal training program here. So again, more background in animal behavior. And so while I'm watching all of these videos, being a little skeptical, thinking about what would this look like for my cat, I'm talking with my coworkers here, like, wouldn't it be cool if we taught some of the animals buttons here, and we would just kind of have little side conversations, and I would share everything I was learning with the cats. And then one day we're like, let's pitch it. Like, what if we actually start a research project? And so we talked to our director and our general curator, and I'm half expecting them to just be like, you guys are nuts. We're not doing this. We don't have time for this. And they were so supportive. And so we wrote up a proposal because seeing how, especially with Loki's medical issues, seeing how that helped so much. Like, what if we could have our animals tell us when they're not feeling well before we notice it? Like, clearly they do. And especially animals who were just kind of built to hide that. Like, it would be amazing if they would let us know. Or if they would let us know, hey, this medicine tastes terrible, but I'll totally take it if you put it in strawberry ensure, but definitely not chocolate ensure, kind of thing. Like, let's cut the middleman. Let's get to the point and like where we can actually communicate and help them live a better life, essentially. And so we put it together. FluentPet graciously donated a bunch of buttons for us, and so now we have 3 capuchin monkeys. We had Asian small clawed otters using buttons. That whole family has now gone to Memphis Zoo, and they went with their buttons. Yeah, and I haven't gotten an update recently, but they had been working with them. They had their hands full with 7 otters, and they're in with gibbons, so it's a full house over there. And then we had an African gray parrot who started to use them, and he was an ambassador animal. So imagine an animal that could say, hey, do you want to go to this birthday party and talk to kids? And he can say yes or no. He also loved to go for walks in his kennel around the zoo. So the trainer would take him and he'd go look at different animals, and he loved Arvacea and warty pigs. And he'd just go down there and make these cute little noises. And so we made him a little travel board that fit inside his kennel. So he could ask for a treat, or he could ask for training because there were some little behaviors he could do in there. He could ask to go home. And then we gave him a button for pigs. So he could specifically ask to go. And he did. And we have red-footed tortoises who are using them as well. So they have mostly food buttons. We're having trouble finding some motivators that are not food for them. They have scratches, which they're okay with. we're trying some different enrichment devices to see if that will spark some. Um, but it's just been so fun to see how all the different animals learn, and how that helps their keepers. Like not only like it's interesting for them clearly. Our female capuchin monkey Frappuccino, last winter, they get dry hands just like we do in the winter. And so she has a button for coconut oil. She has a button for hand. And she has frustrated because they're capuchins. So of course they need the word frustrated. And she pressed the buttons for her trainer hand, frustrated coconut oil, shoved her hands through the mesh, and then sat there while she put coconut oil on her hand. We're like, it did the thing. So
Unbelievable.
we're adding a few more animals. We have a caracal that's just starting, a Florida key deer, and hopefully our lemurs soon as well. So yeah, everything that this can do for our companion animals, I think there's a place for it with our zoo and aquarium animals as well.
Absolutely amazing. Do you know of any other zoos and aquariums that are adopting the technology besides the one that you just mentioned with the otters?
Yeah, so we're working with a small group of facilities just to kind of as test pilots to kind of figure out some best practices because there are some adjustments we have to make. Most of our animals can't have the foam hex tiles because they'll either eat them or just shred them for fun. So we're working with Denver Zoo. Smithsonian National Zoo is helping us kind of on a consulting basis. They were trying with sloth bears and they're just way too destructive. No matter what they did. And so they're now just kind of in a supportive role. And then Elmwood Park Zoo, Brevard Zoo, and Birmingham Zoo just came online. So we're really excited to see what everybody does.
That is so cool. And what other species, aside from the ones that you have listed, are we hoping to engage with the buttons?
So Denver is working with their raccoons. They had a female who was doing some pacing behavior. So they're working on her with that. They had been through their like winter low activity period. So just coming out of that, they're just kind of getting started back up again. I think we've got some parrots out there. We potentially have spider monkeys, jaguar.
Jaguar?
Yeah, I really am interested. So we're testing it with our caragals. They're a smaller cat. So I'm really hoping we get jaguar and then potentially some coyotes.
Cool.
Birmingham. So it's going to kind of be because all the zookeepers are, so busy all the time anyway. So they're kind of working it in where they can and starting with like animals that they're seeing in YouTube or feel like are going to do really well with it. And then hopefully expanding to some other species.
Oh, that is so exciting. I cannot wait to hear where this goes. It's so fun because, dogs obviously 40,000 years of coevolution, evolutionarily selected, whether naturally or artificially, for their ability to communicate and cooperate with us. But we're seeing now, you are seeing how valuable this is, not just to the species that, we presume to have this desire to communicate with us in this way, but how important it is for all non-humans to be able to experience the choice, agency, and control that something like this can afford them. It's really cool.
And one thing I'm looking forward to, I don't think we found our species yet, but I can't wait to teach a species, reptiles, but like a species that people either fear or don't think are important or just don't like them. I can't wait to have a species like that start to use buttons to communicate and it open up everyone's eyes and hopefully win some hearts for their species that maybe aren't the cute, fluffy ones that we're all used to throwing money at for conservation. Like, let's see those lizards and snakes. That's what I'm really excited about.
I love that. Maybe even some spiders.
Maybe
tiny spider buttons.
Yeah, we might need a little tablet. Yeah.
I know. I was gonna say they can communicate such complex things with 8 legs at once.
Yeah.
It'd be like writing manuscripts. Very, very cool.
A translator.
Yeah. I've thought about snakes using buttons before too, and I'm like, how does it work?
Yeah.
You know what I did see the other day? Was this a snake in a little robot body that gave it legs. Have you seen that?
Oh no.
Yeah. It's just like it's just sort of like sits in this little thing that holds it and it's got the little so we could potentially, give snakes feet so that they could press buttons. anyways,
Yeah. And I think with snakes, when we were talking about like the connect ones light up. So potentially
yeah,
like light or like attaching different textures because they clearly aren't going to hear it. But different
yeah,
textures and then you just following it with that consequence.
yeah.
I
Or
think,
like a little vibrate.
yeah, yeah. And that
Yeah,
might
like
be
a little
enough too, just
buzz.
like the speaker going off. So you might be enough to let them know.
Totally. I would
So
imagine so.
we're
Yeah.
starting with the easier one so we can get our system down and then we'll expand to some tougher species.
I love it. Yeah, that's incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's see here. Let's see. Okay, moving back to your companion animals and your personal journey, how would you say that the use of this technology and these systems has changed your connection with your companion animals?
I think it has changed everything about it. Like I already was a very attentive cat mom, but I have fully embraced the crazy cat leadiness of what our household has become. Like they rule every aspect of it. And not that I don't say no, I do. Boundaries are important. I think that's, structure is good. Um, but it's totally, I talk all the time. Like I narrate what's going on all the time. It's important to me that they understand. It's important to me that they give consent. Um, sometimes things just have to happen. Sometimes we just have to go to the vet and you don't get a say in it. But where they can, like I look for ways in which I can involve them more in our day-to-day stuff. So like even giving trouble buttons for Alexa to play music or to turn on lights, like as much choice and control as I can, I try to work that in. Uh, and it's become such a big part of our lives that I can't imagine what it would be without it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you imagine a world in which an animal coming into your home doesn't have access to buttons, or is this a thing forever? Every animal in your home will have buttons,
Yeah,
no question.
forever. Yeah, no
Yeah.
question. To me, this is like our new essential pet supply. I can't imagine having like I was even thinking, how do I get my chameleon to do it? I don't think she would.
Oh,
Uh, but that would be so cool. Like, and I
yeah.
still use the words like with her, and they have two little budgies. But I don't know how much. It's harder to tell if they understand. But yeah, and this has changed the way like I communicate with all animals too.
That's incredible, especially in the work that you do. What a
Yeah,
profound change, just from like being in this space where you're working with animals. You're very um, concerned about enrichment, quality of life, animal ethics, and now having this added element that just like up levels that to a completely to another degree, right?
yeah, and it's I try really hard to not have all of my answers to every question be, oh, we'll just teach them to talk and we'll ask them. But it really is, if I could just do that, it would solve a lot of the issues that we see. Like, let's just ask them.
Truly,
See.
I love that. That's actually, I mean, that should be the tagline for, how do we do better by our animals? Ask them.
Just
You
ask
know,
them. Exactly.
just ask them. I mean, that really is the answer. I love that.
And I think
Um,
especially with zoos too, like some people are on the fence about zoos and some people don't want to hear what our zoo animals have to say. What if they say, I want to go back to the wild or I don't like
mhm.
this? And what I would say is most of our zoo animals have never experienced the wild to begin with, so they don't know. But isn't it our job to know what could help them and then to do that thing? Um, zoos do so much, accredited zoos do so much for conservation. Like, I think it's our duty to do everything we can to give them the best lives possible while they're living with us.
I love that. Yep. I couldn't agree more. I think yeah, nothing to add to that statement. That's perfect. That's so good. So have there been any strange or interesting or notable reactions from the public or strangers, people in your home, people at the zoo? Like what has that experience been like?
I
Because
really
I
haven't.
know, sorry,
Yeah. No, I'm
'cause
sure.
yeah, I know that sometimes it can be a challenge to like move through those spaces. So I'm wondering what that experience has been like for you.
I really haven't experienced any negativity. For all I know, everybody's talking behind my back and cool, but they're not bringing it to my face. Like, I think my husband at first was just like, okay, whatever, let her do her thing. But he's seen too much of it to like, he'll participate now and he talks to trouble the same way I do. But if I'm busy, I'll say like, Dad, get you a treat. And he does it. And I know not everyone's lucky enough to have that in their house. But I haven't heard anybody, I have people ask questions, but when I explain it, like there's never any negativity. I've never, even on Instagram, and I don't have a huge account. I think I had one person ever say something and I just gave a little bit of information and they were fine with it. So yeah, haven't experienced that. Everyone's been really receptive and really curious. So I've been very lucky.
That's amazing. I love that. That should be the case for everyone. I wish that for
Right.
everyone's story. That's
And
incredible.
I was ready for it, but it just hasn't happened.
Perfect. Let's keep it that way.
I agree.
Yeah. So looking forward, where do you hope to get to with your own learners? Where do you hope to get to in your professional life with Buttons? What are some of those aspirational goals for you?
For professional life, I think I want everyone to know that this is an option out there and maybe like more adopt. Because right now, like it's so new in the pet world. It's even newer in the zoo world. So I think just like more awareness. And I'm sure there's some skepticism out there, probably more than in the pet world. And I think just like we're just gonna have to do the same thing. Or we're just gonna have to prove it by continuing to exist and continuing to show people what we're doing. But I think using this as a tool, and it's not going to be fit for every species and every situation, but I think just knowing that that's something you can reach to try, or some variation of it. I think I want that to be on the top of people's minds. Like, here's something we can do to help us solve this problem that we're experiencing. With my own learners, I think I'm super happy with where Trouble is right now. I think I never thought, especially how she started, like I never thought she would be there, but I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel like they have the ability to opt in or opt out if they want to, where that makes sense. We're going to the vet, but like for them to feel that true sense of agency, feel like they're a part of the family, like they're not filling a role, they're not property kind of situation, like that they have a say in things, and how they go. I have a long way to go with these 5-month-old kittens. And I'm not looking for like any magic number of buttons or any magic number of presses per day, but more that like they will use it in the way that works best for them. Cause that's what it's all about. Like I'm not pushing this. I don't have any, they're guiding what I do, and everything. So I want it to be a tool for them that they feel comfortable with and that they can use in their daily life.
I love that. That is just the best answer ever. It's okay. Yeah. Really shows it shows your desire to improve their lives, and it shows proof of how positive a tool this has been for you and your learners. Otherwise you wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Last but not least, what is your most controversial opinion about buttons or behavior?
Buttons or behavior. I don't know how controversial this is, but I don't hear it very often. It's not that complicated. Like okay, thank you. And I know sometimes like it's easier for me because I've been in the animal field for a while. Like it's easy to see those patterns, but yeah, it's not that complicated. You have these antecedents that set up a situation in which you get a behavior and then you see the consequences of that behavior. And that exists in every realm of animal behavior. And I think if we're just willing to listen and be curious about things, there you go.
I love it. That's so good. No, I think about that all the time. Just about how, people are turning this into this massive thing. They're like creating their own roadblocks towards this, but it's really, really simple. And I think if we're motivated, if we have the right motivations, i.e., connecting and communicating and listening and giving our learners choice, agency, control, a better quality of life, whatever that means for them. And it's not that simple. We move in that direction one step at a time. We listen and we talk.
And going back to basics, like I think with any animal training issue too, it's like, well, how do you teach a cat to do this? Because I can teach a dog to do it, but I can't teach a cat. Like go back to the basics. Like what's your motivation? look at your antecedents. Where's your behavior? Like it's all right there. And sometimes I think we just get in our own heads and complicate things too much.
I agree 100%. Um, this has been such an enriching conversation for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. And we've spoken several times before, but I feel like I learned so much more about you and your journey and your learners and your work today. And I loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. This was super fun for me as well.
Hi, Janine. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited to talk with you about your button journey, how you got started, where you are now, how you're involved in the community, and what you've learned along the way. So thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, happy to be here.
Thanks. Could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, who your learners are, and how you got started.
Okay, sure. I'm Janine Lazur. I live north of Philadelphia, so in the suburbs on the edge of a state park. So it's more country than it is city or even neighborhood for sure. I have 3 learners. I have a dog named Twiggy, who's 5 now, and I have 2 littermate cats, Odin and Freya. They're gonna be 4, I think, in the spring. I started with Twiggy when she was like 5 months old. I had been watching. I mean, you were one of the inspirations, right? I'm sure everybody says that, right? But even before you, I was following Christina Hunger and Stella, and it was pre-pandemic. I can remember being like in the office I was working in at that point. Like I have a geographic memory, but I remember like seeing that, oh, there's a new post from Christina and work and being like, when can I take a little break and just like take 2 minutes to just like sit? And they were so interesting because they were barely edited the way we do it now. It's flashier, right? But it was just like she happened to notice that Stella was going to press. And even your beginning ones were like that too, where you were definitely like along for the ride and experiencing the press and thinking about what it could mean. And then she would react. And so you were really in it. And I never doubted it. Like, I'm like, something's happening here. And then I found like Billy Speaks.
Mhm.
And once I saw a cat doing it too, that made me appreciate what I had been missing in my previous cats for sure. And then
Oh,
I found you shortly thereafter, and it was at the point where I think you were teaching pronouns, like I and it,
oh yeah.
and that was one of the first comments I remember leaving. Like that is amazing that she was confused at first, and I remember commenting like, well, kids are confused too. There's a while where they don't know exactly how to use those in a back and forth because you have to flip them if you're talking about, you.
Mhm.
You're talking about yourself as I, but then if I'm talking to you, it's you. But then if you're talking to me, you are I. It's very confusing. So all of that I was just letting percolate. And pandemic times, like you've said, that's when I think you started. And then like a year after that, that's when Christina Hunger's book came out and my dog Twiggy happened to had just arrived and I decided I would just give it a shot. So within about a month for sure, she was pressing and I was using Christina's method, which I know people start in different ways. Some people teach the mechanics of pressing. Christina was teaching based on her experience as a speech therapist for kids who need assistive devices, where she was just doing all the pressing and all the pressing and all the pressing and having faith that with enough exposure to the button going off before the thing happens, if the human paused a little bit, would the learner try and press? And that's exactly what happened with Twiggy. So she was like what I call by the book learning, and she was off to the races within about, I think within 6 weeks, I had to set down and all done and a more button because it was too demanding. So then we were into abstract words and we progressed really quickly. So that's her story. And then my cats had different, I don't know, different needs for understanding buttons that came into a household after a year and a half of Twiggy using buttons. So we had easily, I don't know, 75 buttons. So they came in here and it seemed like that was a tool that she and I used, but something that they weren't running over it and they weren't like laying on it and making big word salad stuff, but they also weren't picking up on the way, even when I did purposely model for them, they weren't picking up on it the way Twiggy did. So we did the other way is you teach the mechanics and see if that is going to help them.
Right.
They were great at the mechanics, the early target training. But even then, that was not enough. My cat Odin has been pressing for 2 years now, and Freya for a year. So there was a whole year of me in fits and starts, just seeing if they were interested and not pressuring them or anything, and then giving myself and them a break. So yeah, their journeys were different. I don't want to get too much into the details, but I just think it's useful for people to understand that even in the same home with the same teacher and the same exposure, and maybe even more, right? Because the cats were seeing buttons in use all the time. That
Mhm.
still is not a guarantee that just because you've had success before that it's going to happen again. I do believe, because I do the mentorships, that we have enough community knowledge now that we can, I think no matter what your situation is, we can use the hive mind and give people some sort of
Mhm.
action based on what's going on. So yeah, it's interesting to have 3 active users in the house.
Yeah, same. I think that's such a valuable point about, different things are going to motivate different individuals. And something that I've noticed, particularly with Bunny, is that her sensitivity leads to her pressing quite a bit more than Otter, who is a much less sensitive dog. Like she really
Yep.
sort of, it seems that she wants that sense of control around the stimuli in her environment. She wants to understand that I am seeing what she's seeing. She wants that feedback of like, is it okay? And it's something I should be worried about. Whereas Otter is a little bit less concerned, and he can explore the buttons in a different way, and is obviously interested by different concepts and different things. I always say he uses the buttons for evil, just to manipulate situations. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how different learners are going to approach their use, or if they're going to approach their
Right.
use. And I think people will see like a Bunny or a Stella or a Parker or like any number of dogs online and be like, oh, I'm going to teach my dog or cat or other species to learn, and sort of expect to receive exactly what they're seeing online. And that's just not how it goes. I mean, and if nothing else, that paints this picture of the absolute individuality of the animals we spend our lives with, which I think is a really beautiful thing to
Yeah,
notice.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say Twiggy, she has some things she's very sensitive about in terms of space or people, animals possibly wanting her food. Like it's not a truth, but it's a truth in her own brain. So
Hmm.
might have been like amazing for her to be able to us together to label what her feelings are and how she can react, and just learning words like move as also a command, but also something she can use on the cats and say move. Like you'll see her growl and spin, and she doesn't spin to push into their space to move them away. She's spinning so she can go to her button and say move. So it's like the non-violent. Here we all have
Yeah.
understand, and you weren't listening to my growl. So let me say this in our common tongue here in this house. So um,
That's really interesting.
yeah. And just
Yeah.
even just the comprehension side of it, like you can't expect a learner in the midst of having an emotional moment to be like, wait a minute, let me go say this in English, right? They're going to do what they're going to do, but they have that receptive understanding that
Hmm.
I can say, I see her growling and frozen and defending a water bowl, and the cats are coming towards her, which we know like coming straight at a dog is a problem, but they're not coming to get her water. It's just the
Hmm.
trajectory. Um, but if I can say, "Uh-oh, Twiggy concerned," maybe, maybe is one of our great words, because it's not really a command. It gives them agency and a choice. So here's my suggestion, maybe Twiggy move, and it gets through to her and it gets her out of her
Hmm.
frozen defensive state, and makes me laugh because sometimes she'll like take her teeth, and that's the water bowl, and she's going to take her and her water and go somewhere else with it, and you see it like splashing around.
That's
And this is not,
hilarious.
it's gotten so much better over the years, so we're not having that
Yeah.
kind of situation now so much, but yeah, those kind of buttons, or too much is a word that I use, to
Mm.
explain somebody's too close. So I'm like, "Odin, the cat, Odin, too
Mhm.
much," because he was sniffing her butt, and she's not a fan of the whiskers up on the back end, and
No.
right? A surprise tickle, or the enhancement, like, um, but me saying that enough. It's not a concept that I like explicitly taught, but just through
Yeah.
saying it, I turn that into a button. And so now she can go and complain. Usually that happens like before I would have seen signs that she was physically getting a little upset. If she's still
Mm-hmm.
at lower levels, she'll go over and press too much. And that draws my attention to what was happening that was either too much for her, or was the cat Odin being a bully on his sister. And like it's really interesting how um introducing words as labels, not just for objects or actions, but I mean feelings in a way. Too much is something that we all say when we don't have enough specific words to explain what the problem is. You're just like, it's too much. It's too much.
I'm overwhelmed. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting too. I mean, this is very obviously speaks to how much behavior is driven by reinforcement. Because I think, you know, moving over to a button board with like 100 buttons on it, finding the specific button, that is an extremely high response effort behavior. So unless there is a history of reinforcement that is very meaningful to the individual, that is not a
Right.
behavior that will continue to occur. Right. And I think one of the things that happens in these relational dynamics is that humans will be very attentive to hearing words in our language coming from a non-human, which at its core could seem quite anthropocentric. But what's actually happening is that it is changing the way we listen, right?
Right.
Because we start listening in a different way. We start paying very, very close attention to like, okay, is this word choice aligned with the behavior that I'm seeing? If not, what other word choices could be salient to my learner to help them through this prickly condition that I see on a regular basis, which is exactly what it sounds like you've done.
Right, right. And to that point of it like working for them and her repeating that behavior, it's because she alerts me to it. Like I think on her own, there are not going to be problems where she eats a cat. I don't think she's not in it for the predation. She's just sometimes feeling like I have no.
She's like, I don't want the whiskers on my butt.
Right,
Get out of
right,
here.
right.
Yeah.
But because she knows going to the button when I'm within earshot, and she tends not to press when I'm not home, right? That's almost like raising the flag of I need help over here, and she's giving me
Totally.
out what the situation is. And between the button press and my intervention, or just my presence and attention, it's working for her, so that she's going to continue to use that. And like speaking about that, like I think sometimes the cat too, Odin, who's the butt or whatever, he gets growled at, and then he goes and looks at the buttons and he complains himself. He'll be like, "Uh-oh," or Twiggy, like just to acknowledge there was a problem. And I have a growl button. It's just me saying grrr, because that's something that Twiggy gives the signal. She's very patient with them. She exaggerates her facial expression. She does a long growl. Sometimes she pushes more air into it. And I can narrate that for the cat, saying like, Twiggy, grrr, Twiggy concerned, Twiggy mad, grrr, cat move, like in that caveman language. So then I was curious, like, because I've been saying grrr myself, right? It doesn't sound like a dog growl, but cats growl at each other. Twiggy obviously growls. What would happen when a grr button was down? Odin will sometimes just echo the grr because he was growled at by Twiggy, and he's like, grr.
Really?
And and he gives her direct eye contact. So I can't tell if it's narration saying I was growled at, or
If he's growling back.
like I can growl back at you too. But by having to go to the buttons, he removes himself from that situation anyway. So
That's a win-win. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's super, super cool.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of Twiggy's favorite words? I mean,
Right.
I would presume that they have changed over time. So maybe give us a little bit of a trajectory of what some of those favorite words have been over time.
Right. Yeah. That's a very good point, because they definitely have. And her communication style, when I look back at the early presses, it was much easier to understand, which is strange, because you would think that like in the beginning, maybe you're doing more work in interpretation or looking at the situation that would cause her to press things. But she had fewer words and she wasn't using them in expanded ways. So now we always have the situation of it used to mean this, and now she's broadened it to mean that. So in my head, when I hear a press, I'm like, is it about this, or is it about this broader meaning? So it was simpler back then. But I think in the beginning, she was doing like, the typical stuff that, trying to think if she had a favorite one. She loved more in the beginning, which is fun because that's like the antidote to all done. So some of my favorite memories of her catching on were we had this I brought a prop it's called skunk, but this is a flirt pole, but this is just
Mhm.
the whole rug. So we had that, and it was kept out of reach up on top of one of those cabinets because if she had it down, she would shoo the lure off of it, and I'd be stuck with like a stick and a rope and no toy. um but that was her, what I call her gateway word. It was the word that she had play and she had outside as starter words. And she didn't know either of those words. So I was like following, what do you see online and the recommendations back then? Or those, they're very broad. They're useful for all kinds of things. But she was also having to learn the word meaning for that. And she was using the buttons, but not a ton. But when I gave her a specific word for skunk, her favorite toy, so favorite that she couldn't have it all the time, that's when her usage took off and she was quickly combining like skunk. And it was something that made a big difference in her life, that even though she was a puppy and we were playing a lot, going outside a lot, this was like something she could like special order. So then that's what made me, I think 30 times a day is sort of, I've realized that's my threshold for like how many times you can ask me for something. And like that was when I had to put in those boundary words. So all done and more. But my favorite,
Yeah.
like her little head, like we just played with skunk, and then I'd take it and I have a camera like sitting up on top of that cabinet. So I have like in the footage, there's this bird's eye view of me saying all done skunk and me reaching up and putting it away. And I'm sure I pressed all done skunk too. But then there's her little puppy body and she's like, more. And, oh, so she understood the antidote to all done. So giving her that control even early on of like, the human's done, but maybe I want to keep going. And, with your beginners, you're going to indulge them and all of that. So I think
Yeah.
more one of her favorites. Chew, she used to narrate Chew a lot just for herself, which I love narration. It's like I didn't have to be involved, but her teeth wanted something to chew, and you'd see her press chew, and then she'd go over and she'd get something to chew on, and she'd lay on her bed, and then sometimes she
Yeah.
would read all done. And that I think strangely, like those are my favorite moments, not really that she used specific words on repeat a lot. It was just that she had internalized through this, like there were words that go with my actions, and I call it like the words are leaking out. Like sometimes I'm sure she's
Mhm.
all those words now, but there were moments when they would just leak out.
Let's talk about what is her favorite, what is Twiggy's favorite word right now? Like what words is she
Right
using
now.
consistently?
Her first press every day is teeth. So teeth in your mouth,
Mhm.
which is her shorthand. I've realized over time, it's sort of supplanted the use of chew. She wants something to occupy her teeth, and she's not hungry in the morning. So I've almost fallen out of the habit of feeding her because she can ask if she, like I would offer and she didn't want it, and I would offer and she didn't want it. And so over time, because she has buttons, I allow her. She doesn't have to ask me for food, obviously, but
Yeah.
for the morning time, if she's hungry, she can ask for like a full meal, which she might call food big. I call that food big too, or she uses ball instead of bowl to mean like a meal.
Oh, cool.
So I understand all of that, but her first action every morning is to go out, come into this big room here, and she presses teeth. And like I said, I realize that she wants something. So it's just like a little snack. It's usually
Yeah.
a turkey tendon. So it's something
Yeah.
like not filling, something fun to chew on. And that's just how she starts her day. So that's definitely high
I
on the
love
list.
that.
Most
Yeah,
used.
that's adorable.
Yeah, it's super cute. She
Yeah.
was using PU Stinky a lot, which is it smells. There's no explanation for that, but she had
Right.
when she gets upset with the cat, she was pressing litter box a lot, or if she gets upset with me, litter box. So she's kind of using it like a curse word. If we
Yeah.
ever study that, I can't wait to see how all these animals
Oh my
around.
gosh, there's so many. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
great.
So that is it. Funny.
We have a little coyote party going on outside. So all three of my dogs
Or
are
what?
yelling a little bit. I'm gonna get some
Okay.
teeth. I'm gonna get teeth for them.
Good.
Okay. All right. That should we'll see. Hopefully that distracts
Okay.
from the coyote party.
How close
We'll
does it
see.
go? How close?
I mean, I've seen them close right now. I mean, I can't hear them because I have my AirPods in, but A little bit ago, we went outside and I could just hear the yip yap
Oh, yeah.
howlies just sort of like surrounding. I couldn't see any, but they were around. I love coyote sounds. I think they're so cool. It's
I've only like seen them in movies, like in a Western, right? In Europe.
Oh really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool. They're pretty
Yeah.
it's dramatic.
Hmm.
They're not like wolf howls. They're a little bit more chaotic, I would
Okay.
say.
Huh.
Yeah, but they're fun. It's a fun sound. And
Interesting.
until my dogs hear it and like lose their minds.
Right.
And that's a little bit less fun. But it's just part of living in the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have foxes? We hear foxes in the summer sometimes. There's like a mating season when they sound like
Whoa.
pterodactyls. They're defending their territory, but it's this big, loud, like scream squawk in the middle of the
Wow.
night. Usually, like horror. Good. Um, so we were on favorite words.
Yes.
I was saying litter box was a curse word, and then I added pu stinky because I wanted to be. That's what I figured she was saying. Like this stinks, whatever the situation is. So then that
Yeah.
became her word quickly, very quickly. Litter box rarely gets pressed now, but like this stinks. I gets used on me if I tell her no for something or
That's amazing.
um,
Yeah.
what else? Maybe is a very popular word. She doesn't use
Hmm.
want very much, but I know it's because when I see myself in footage in the early days, I would hear myself offering things. Like I couldn't say for sure that she wants to go outside. Twiggy want outside. It was more of a
Right.
question than a statement. So maybe want outside. And now maybe is an opening
Want.
word all the time. So yeah, used as a very polite version of want. So I find that interesting, and it's rare that she combines it with stuff. So she uses that as "Are you maybe?" and then like ... until she gets my attention, and then maybe what, or we take it from there. So
That's cool. It's just like a thought starter, like a conversation starter.
yes,
Like
yeah,
opens up options. It's like, give me choice. Maybe is
Or-
like a give me choice.
or yeah, it's not even that I have to give her a choice. It's that she wants to start her statement, but doesn't want to go ahead until she realizes that I've
that
heard.
you're attentive.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
so instead of
cool.
saying like Janine, right, which she will
Mhm.
use too, but
Mhm.
maybe is her opening, or she will use this one's a strange use, surprise. So I
Mm.
a have a tunnel that the cats use, right, hiding and popping out at each other. And Twiggy used to play with them a lot more when she was younger, and a cat like jumping into your space, and they were playful with her too, was a little off-putting for a dog who's not really into that. So I had to work with her and narrate that this is, they're playing, and play surprise is what I was labeling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then she started, and she would invite them to come play surprise, and very specifically. So she liked to do that. And then over the course of time, she started using surprise when there was no playing going on. And so I was
Hmm.
wondering, what's with the surprise? And with, as you know, like with enough repeats of the stuff that you don't understand, you kind of start to piece it together. What's the scenario?
Mhm.
She'll use it as an opening word. It's kind of like a tap on the shoulder, but it's like, you weren't paying attention to me. But if she could pop in front of my eyes and say, surprise, like, notice me, I'm here, I want to interact.
Yeah.
It's like, especially if I'm busy cooking or something, or busy with the cats, she like pops herself in by saying surprise. Or if
I love that.
she comes into the room, sometimes this is super cute too. She'll announce like surprise, which is like, I'm here. So that's been one of the most interesting things about buttons, where I didn't really expect that I would be getting usage that far beyond what my original meaning was, but having to
Mhm.
just sort of sit with it and watch the patterns, and then like agree to her language. And I'm not correcting her.
Mhm.
We have a hello button. Instead, you should say hello, Janine, right? You can just say
Mhm.
surprise. That's totally cool. But I don't go
Right.
around. I don't go around saying surprise myself when I show up. But
Right.
right.
That's that's actually you're bringing up one of my favorite things about the buttons is the type of sort of relational communication that is generated. Like it's like we're developing our own languages together, because dogs, I mean, how we can't possibly know conceptually how they are interpreting the
Right.
labels, the concepts we give them. We do the best we can to create a sort of shared meaning. And then they run with it. And as they run with it, we adapt and we
Right.
run with it. We give them words that we think are closer to their conceptual understanding. And then they
Right.
show us that we're way off or that we're spot on or that something
Right.
else means another, it's just, it's
Right.
really, really fascinating the way it sort of scaffolds on itself.
Mhm.
And we see this over and over with
Yeah.
so many different learners. It's really cool to witness.
Yeah, I have, if we can just stay on this topic for a second, a very good example of that. Like my defined meaning of something that there was no way for me to fully define it for her, but the way she pressed to show me her understanding of it just was very strange, but also very right. So one of or the first time that I was like, she really understands these buttons was not in her first like year and a half of use where I knew she was, right? It all made sense to me, most of it. But then I had a dog and a cat who she used to live with who died within weeks of each other. And so really sad, really hard for me, hard for her. She's the only pet in the house. And the weeks following that, when she started pressing very specifically their name and where or find it
Oh,
and like all, and so I'm like crying, listening to like, how do I explain where they are? And she would want to go outside, find it. She'd want to go patrol and see if maybe they're like, been a couple days, I haven't seen them. Can we find them? Um, so
it's heartbreaking.
it was heartbreaking, but also like, what fabulous use of buttons. We have a remember button, so she was even using that, like, remember Goose was the dog. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's like talk about him. That's great. And she was probably saying like, tap, tap, tap. We've been trying to find him for a while. Like, can we get on that task again? But also I'm in the habit of talking to her about her day. At the end of each day, we'll tell a little story about what she did. So she's used to like remembering. So remember helped us reminisce together and sort of like heal together a little bit. But 9 months later, fast forward, she's still freaking pressing the names, of them, and the cat's name was Puma, and I was like, when she's saying where, and I'm saying there, we don't have home, but it's no home, Goose goodbye, Puma goodbye, all done. I'm trying all the words that we have, right?
Right.
But in her experience, those words are not ever permanent states. When I say goodbye, I'm gonna go
Right.
home, right?
Right.
All
Yeah.
done. We're all done food for now, but there's gonna be more food. So those weren't adequate. And so although her presses did decrease over time, like 9 months in was like, I'm gonna have to just like tell her flat out, I'm gonna tell her dead. Like it's a word she's never heard. But when you're
Mhm.
gonna ask me about these pets, I'm gonna say they're dead. Um, no way that I could demonstrate that necessarily, but just giving her a word that she hadn't heard did tamp it down a little bit. Then
Interesting.
we had an occasion where I don't know how it happened, but Twiggy and I were outside and she showed me in the driveway there was a good sized gray bird that was dead. It
Mhm.
was still, I didn't touch it, but when I pushed at it, like it wasn't rigor mortis yet, so it was still soft and floppy. So I'm like, okay, I've been saying the word dead for a while. Now's the time to bring a button into this and make it an
Mhm.
official word. And so that helped me demonstrate. I was very conscious of I did not want decay to be the meaning of dead because I didn't want her to think of Goose and Puma as like these rotting things. And I know like the
Mm.
sensory feeling of decay is not pleasant, right? We kind of avoid that. Dogs are curious about it, but they're still not like they're not really eating the rotting stuff so much as they would prefer
Mhm.
fresh. So I didn't want that association, but by finding like freshly dead, I was able to demonstrate the button and I took it outside with me with the bird. Then a couple weeks later, we had a little baby bunny who showed up injured. I don't know what happened to him. And I think Twiggy even discovered him under a bush. And who knows if he was going to survive, but she met him when he was injured but alive and put him in the shade and the little bugs, tried to just like give him some shelter to see if things would work out. And it did not. So by the end of that day, he was dead. So that I still can picture this. She was so, I don't know, trying to process it as like, as if we could give CPR to the bunny. She
Mhm.
was, I, I left it where it was, like I let her sniff it and stuff and it wasn't moving. And she was doing this like pouncing, not on it, but like near it. So that's, I think, what reminded me of CPR, like just trying, like play bowing, pouncing, circling, trying to like be excited to be like, hey, hey, hey. And she never saw the bunny like active like that, but it something in her was like, maybe we can
Revive.
bunny.
Yeah.
And so she spent hours. Well, I'll say I brought the button again, dead, outside with it so I could model dead, explain
Yeah.
that like this is motionless, lifeless. And I think animals do have a sense of that, especially having
Mhm.
seen life and then no spirit in there. So she
Mhm.
did press dead on that occasion, but she spent hours outside. There was like digging and digging and digging all around it from all her activity, but like again, not interfering with the actual body, but like just very attentive to it. And the sun went down, and I'm like finally like, you have to come inside. We can't spend all night because the bunny's dead. But she didn't know what dead was.
Yeah.
Well, she did. I'm sure she did at that point in her brain. This something was making a connection, but the fact that it's permanent, I don't think was. So then the next day, I pulled it up out of the grass and protected the body overnight because I didn't want other animals to come take it away, and then she doesn't have closure again. So the next day, I put it back out, and by the time I put it on her deck, she spent all morning with it. And then by the time the flies started to come, she lost interest. So like once it hit the decay state,
Yeah.
she was no longer interested. Something changed. But then my bigger point with all of this, now she has a dead button, right? So what is she going to use it for? And I was modeling probably when she asked about goose or puma, I would say goose dead, puma dead.
Yeah.
Love you, goose. We would always like transition it into memories and comfort. But then she started using dead, not related to their names, just by themselves. And most of the time, I wasn't paying any attention, and I would just hear dead. What is dead? And she wouldn't give me any clues, but I could look at the footage. She is obsessed with um, squeaker refills. So inside squeaky toys, you know how dogs pull apart a squeaky toy to get to the squeaker. I call them naked squeaky. She is very happy to just play with the squeaker part, so we don't have to destroy stuff. She can just like kill the noise, but then she plays with the non-squeaky squeaky, the quiet one, and she throws it
Right.
apart. Then what was happening was she was playing with her squeakies, and she does it so often that I wasn't paying any attention. She was having squeakies go under the sofa or under the kitchen island, and you could see her trying to get them and get them and get them. And then she'd press dead. And then, again, because I wasn't paying attention, I wasn't getting it until I saw the footage. And it was very clear to her, dead means unavailable to me, is how I translated it. So when she lost something that she loved or used to want and just could not get to it, it was a perfect way to express it. And she has a word for stuck and she has a word for help, but like through all her efforts, she still was unable to obtain it. So that's her
That is
use of
so
it.
interesting.
Yeah, she doesn't talk about goose and puma very much anymore. I took that tile, I took their names off of the names tile and put it with the dead button. So now we have like a memorial tile that has
Yeah.
two that have passed and the word dead, and it doesn't get used very
Yeah.
often at all, if ever, I would say, in the past like year and a half. So
That's such
yeah,
interesting. I mean, it's such an interesting conceptualization of a very difficult idea
right,
to,
right.
try and explain to a non-human. It reminds me of this book that I read that is fascinating that you might also enjoy. It's called Playing Possum. I
Okay.
don't remember the author, but it's about minimal concept of death in non-humans. Like, how do non-humans experience death? What do they know about death?
Yeah,
Do they have an idea, a concept? Anyways,
yeah,
I think you might find that really interesting.
yeah, very. You just made me think of one other use that she has of it that circles back to your predatory sequence. For very, very good recall, I carry like the cheapest, probably the most delicious version of cat food. So if she's off far away in the woods and I call her and she comes back, she gets this jackpot. I pull this thing open and give it to her. One day we came in she earned one of those and she brought the container with her inside because I guess the husk is still valuable. And then she went over and she pressed dead. So that to me was different than not available. That was more of the predatory sequence of like, you gave me this thing and I took the good stuff out of it.
Yeah, like finished.
Here's my trash.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. That's
But
so interesting. Yeah, there have been, I mean, several instances that I'm aware of, and I'm sure many more that I'm not aware of, humans and their companion animals seemingly having conversations around other animals that have passed or other
Yeah.
humans that have passed, and, sort of navigating what are we, I think maybe I don't have kids, so maybe it's the same with kids. Like, how do we tell somebody that a person is never coming back or an animal is
Right.
never coming back? Like, how do we even broach that subject? It's such complicated material, and incredibly fascinating to see how members of our community are navigating those conversations.
Yeah, like it felt for me, it felt like I had opened this Pandora's box of like a gift
Uh-huh.
door, and now I have to deal with this. And did I do the right thing? And there's no question I did the right thing, but in the moment, like trying to navigate that, it did feel like helping a child. And
For sure.
I looked up how you help children. Most of them don't have a conception of it being a permanent thing.
Right.
So some up until the age of 9. So all the advice
Wow.
is just working through the memories and the good times. If you're thinking of the person enough to ask about them, then let's use the real terms. Let's not use past or whatever. For humans, we have more words for that. But
Mhm.
that helped me in just deciding that dead was the right word to use for her, and just dealing with the emotions of it for myself and her. Just, we use the word remember, and let's remember some good times, and let's end it with hugs and loving, and say it out loud. Love you, Goose. Love you, Puma. Twiggy's, still, I don't say the word still, but Twiggy, love you, Goose, because she was asking about him, whatever.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's so interesting to me. And these are the sorts of things that I find particularly compelling that are coming out of this practice with non-humans, right? I mean, we know that the people who are using buttons with their dogs, although some people might argue this, are very tuned in to body language. I think that's one of the arguments against buttons is, oh, you're just ignoring dog body language. The fact is that in order to pick concepts, to pick words, labels that are salient to the individual, we have to be really tuned in to how our dogs are responding to stimuli, to what they're smelling, to what they're looking at, to who they're reacting to what sort of food preferences and toy preferences they have. And those things become really obvious to us as we move
Yeah.
through this process because we start paying attention in a different way. So
Mhm.
there's no way with body language that we could intuit that a dog is interested in talking about a lost sibling. These are things, these are cases for words that are really compelling to me. Like
Yeah.
without words for these concepts, it would just be impossible to explore in the same way.
Yeah, for sure. You can't go that deep. Like, I had one dog who passed, and the other dog, this is before Twiggy, the other dog like truly was sitting on the ottoman looking out at our driveway for days and days and days. And that was not his habit, right? So I could intuit he was wondering, right, where,
Uh-huh.
because of what had just happened, is he wondering
Yeah.
where that other dog is, and is she ever
Yeah.
coming home? But
Yeah.
we didn't have words, and I couldn't ask him, and
Right.
I didn't think to sit down and say, Goose, remember Violet, love you, Violet. But like that's
Right. Because it'd
and
be meaningless. It's meaningless
right,
unless you've already built that context,
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Super interesting.
Mhm. And we have, I don't know if you saw in the community a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, there was someone whose partner, someone who died in a tragic accident and like nature. Her dog witnessed it, and then now the partner's trying to figure out how to inherit a dog who speaks, and but also deal with all of that where's my person now. So I feel like I should follow up at least in the community and see how things are going. But
I should
yeah,
as well. That's a complicated, it's a very complicated situation that I don't think we've had to tackle before. And it makes sense for us to rally as a community to help.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, sort of along the same lines, I'm wondering how this has changed your bond, how this has changed how you think about non-human cognition, communication, emotional sentience, etc.
Yeah, I think I'll switch to cats to answer that because, like I said,
Great.
when I saw Billy Speaks, right, I'd seen Stella, I'd probably seen you, I'd probably seen Bastion, right? But then when I saw Billy, I'm like, oh, now the cats are doing this too. Like
Yeah.
they're just more opaque, I think, as creatures in our home. That I was definitely, like I said, just underestimating what was going on with them mentally. That dogs, they're kind of along for the ride with you, where cats aren't necessarily,
Right.
depending on cats' personalities. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed my perception of what's going on, obviously with dogs, but with cats too. Like my cat Odin, I had no idea that he would want this necessarily, but um, I let them generally ask for food. So, because I work from home, so I can feed them like a tablespoon's worth of food at a time, and they don't have to have a big meal. And I've read that cats like to have just like small mouse size little bits throughout the day. So I indulge that. Um, he very often is requesting things that don't make sense together. So food plus Zoom Zoom, which is an automated toy that spins around under a blanket, or cat TV and crunchy is our word for kibble, or trying to think what else. Underneath, I call playing with like a feather toy under a crumpled pile of paper where I hide it underneath, and some food related word. He wants his food in different places near his entertainment. So
Mhm.
he I think it's part of like the hunting part of cats that like if you're gonna eat in the same place every day as a cat, you're not living any kind of life where you're working at all, right? To get your food. You're just showing up in the spot and then food is airdropped in. But he has figured out a way to talk about locations in the house, or tunnel is another word that we have. Where he likes to be served. Sometimes he'll add catnip to that too. So in his mix, all his stuff, it's just given me insight into he's fulfilling some kind of natural desire to add spice to his mealtime, and with the enrichment activities that he already has. So it makes total sense that if you're sitting there and you're watching YouTube videos of birds or mice moving all around, that some of that predation sequence, right, is jumping up inside of you. Like I'm watching, I'm hunting. They can't. He actually does. Sometimes he will pounce at the TV, but not so much anymore now that he's wiser to it. But that's still, you know, making those juices rise. So
Yeah.
bringing his food to the place where he was hunting makes total sense to me. So yeah, there's a lot going on with them, even though like Odin, I don't know, out of our like 150 words, Odin probably uses 50, if that. And
Hmm.
I didn't teach him the whole board. He kind of has an area that he knows, and he's an explorer, so he'll like expand his knowledge a little bit. Um, but even, with that smaller vocabulary, he's still able to, and he's not using 50 words every day, of course, but,
Right. Yeah.
right. But he's showing me there's definitely more inside cats than we would think. And Freya, my other learner, doesn't use that many. I call her like the Crayola 8-pack. Like she has some words that
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
likes, and the rest of it she doesn't have a need for. But I mean, more is one of her favorite buttons. And it starts with affection. She's so like cuddly, and you saw her walking in front of the screen. Like she just wants to
Mhm.
be with a human a lot of the time. So once I
Mhm.
start petting her, her most requested stuff is just more, 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 more of the same petting. And she uses other words too, but that I think without buttons, even for a cat who doesn't use a lot of words, I wouldn't have any sense of how much she would like this to continue. And she's not really pushy with wanting that affection, so it's not like she was bumping up against me and trying to be a little annoying. Zoom Zoom. We were talking about Zoom Zoom, Odin, remember? Right? Zoom Zoom and crunchy food. Can we play Zoom Zoom later? Let's see. Yeah, so I think I think we covered off on Twiggy's emotional depth, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're working on now and excited to introduce conceptually or otherwise with any of your learners?
Good question. I live in a one-room schoolhouse, so it's a big space where I have a lot of room on the floor, but I have some chalkboards. And I have a chalkboard where I use even in the beginning, I wrote down words that I was like working on in advance of turning them into buttons. So stuff we're working on, I was saying I have a blackboard where I used to write down words that we're working on, and now it's more conceptual stuff. So I'm glancing over there. It's about a year old. We've added a lot, but I would say quantity buttons are on there. I read, heard there's a Radio Lab episode saying the idea of integers as numbers is really foreign to most cultures, and we don't need all that specificity. So for us, Twiggy has this kibble dispenser. She calls it food rain, or she named it food rain. So when she pushes the button, the food falls down. And I expect that it's just because the food was falling. She needs to do that in a room by herself, so the cats aren't interested, and she needs me to be there with her. And it turned into this whole thing. I was so bored just like watching her use her kibble machine, that I started counting for her. So we have as 0, like nothing came out, because sometimes that happens. 1, just 1. And I tend to use phrases with her, like more than one word, because she has a lot of words that she confuses if they're too close sounding. So that's why it was 1, just 1, and 2, 1, 2. I inadvertently was counting 1, 2. So that kind of became a phrase, and then so many. So I think she's heard me say it for years as I'm counting. And fortunately, I've gotten her more independent in using that. So I'm not stuck every day counting kibble with her.
Nice. That's a lot.
I do have those on my board, as I would just be curious. And I've seen some other people have tried ways of conceptualizing quantity beyond, I guess, big and little is another way to talk about that. And we kind of do that.
Totally.
And 1, just 1, 2, 1, 2, and so many are things that I would be curious to see if I put those down as buttons, when she start ordering things in quantity. I say it a lot if she's repeatedly asking for a treat, and I'm finally going to give in. And I'm like, 1, just 1, little. So she might start, because she'll use little as quantity, I guess. Like she knows that she might just get a little piece of something. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's probably our most exciting, most advanced one. Words,
Cool.
with cats, reaction words. Something we use. I took care of, understand and confused was a very useful one that, after years of trying to interpret and still being unable to explain while I'm stuck and I'm not reacting properly to what she's saying. Even with the cats, it helps a lot. I think the idea of being confused, I think they can sense that from us. Like we heard them and we're stuck. So if I can say that I'm confused, or Janine want understand because why, that's our phrase for why.
Right.
Usually get them to expand on their thoughts or rephrase. So that was a good one that I had on the board for a while, and a couple months ago added, and it's been very useful. So.
Amazing. These are such great concepts to explore. I love it. Yeah. Last but not least, I would like to know, Janine, what is your most controversial button or behavior related opinion?
Here's exactly what it is. I get criticized all the time in comments, not that buttons aren't real anymore and we're over-interpreting, right? Anthropomorphizing. I get criticized all the time for how extreme I am. And I know among the button accounts that I follow, I'm probably the most strict, and I have logic for it. I don't speak in full sentences with full grammar to my learners. I have worked very hard to try and be in their shoes. If they're trying to express something, I want to keep my vocabulary limited to what they have available. And they have 150 words, so we have a lot that we can work with. But I get so many comments saying, they are smarter than that. You can just talk to them like in normal English. Why are you dumbing this down? Why are you treating them like babies? And my response, which I think to this day, no one's ever rebutted me once I give them a good answer. My answer is they're not children. I don't have to train them to speak in full sentences to go out into the world and graduate from high school or even kindergarten, right? The nature of this tech is they're always going to be limited to the words they have available. So like I said, I want to put myself in their shoes, understand what it's like. But also when I really want to be understood, I want to use words that they have used back at me, right? So we're living in this common language ourselves. I don't care if it annoys you. Some people are like, oh, that's so grating. I can't even listen and whatever. Other people say it tickles their ear so much because they love, right? They know some of our vocabulary.
Yeah.
And even if they don't, it's just a fun exercise. It's like listening to Yoda talk, right? You're not,
Yeah.
the order doesn't matter so much. And so it's not like I never use full sentences. You'll see some of my videos where I do. It comes out. But when I really need to be understood, I have a very firm belief that I should speak like they do. And not saying everybody has to, because I
Totally.
think absolutely the receptive understanding is so far greater than what they're able to produce. But I also believe like this soundboard is our common language. So I'm happy to just speak in button. And I joke that
Love it.
in the nursing home, that's all I'm going to speak. I'll speak button. People will understand me. And
Yeah.
oh, good. It's less cognitive load in a way. Once you've accepted, you have this like fence around what words you have available. So
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And also it speaks to there isn't one right way.
right.
None of us are experts here. We are all here because we are exploring the depth of communication and connection that is possible between us and our animal companions. So there's no right way to do it. And I think it's a beautiful exploration that you have going on, and your relationship with your learners is a testament to that. So I love that. And thank
Good.
you for sharing. Janine, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I feel like I got to know you and your learners so much better than I had before. And I just really appreciate this conversation and hearing how you approach things. It's been a beautiful discussion.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. It's really fun.
Thanks.
Subscribe.